Today we have an exciting show because we are all together again, the three co-founders of Stand for Health Freedom, and today with one of the most exciting pieces of news because we get questions all the time. How do you know what natural health products to trust? What are you doing in your health regimen? What's the one thing we're missing? What's the one mistake people make? And so we have more answers than you could ask for today. So welcome back, Dr. Joelle Bohemier and Sayer G. I'm excited to hear about what y'all have been up to over the past several months.
Great to be
So,
with you, Leah. Thank you for having us.
yeah, so good to be here with you. I'm just so happy. Anything Stand for Health Freedom related, just, overjoyed.
Well, one of the questions I get more than almost anything else is, Leah, what supplements do you take? What supplements do you actually trust? And today, instead of giving you another list, I want to teach people how to recognize a supplement that's actually worth taking, that has the stated benefit, and then introduce what y'all have built from the ground up. The health freedom movement has been taught to be skeptical, to question pharmaceuticals. But if we should be asking harder questions about supplements, we need to know that. A lot of people forget to ask questions about natural health products. So today we're talking about what separates truly beneficial products from expensive bottles of so-called hope. So, Sayer, you have spent years exposing problems in the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry. So, what made you decide now that it wasn't enough to critique bad products, but to build a better one?
Well, the story goes back a long time ago because before I created Green Med Info, which was made live to the public in 2008, I actually did a project which looked at conventional vitamins like Centrum. And really all I did was I looked at the ingredients and put links to toxicological research. And I remember at the time I was concerned because it was coming up on the first page of Google before all the algorithms started to punish, those who were speaking, out on topics that were not accepted. And I ended up taking the site down, but for a few years it got, a huge amount of traffic because people didn't realize that most supplements have really, I would say, harmful excipients, like things they put into the capsule to make it last forever on a shelf, but had no benefit for your body. And ultimately, I decided to kind of move into a larger advocacy. Green Med Info has 10,000 health topics and it's about evidence-based natural healing. But what I wanted to do there was not, get into supplements because I felt there was too great a conflict of interest. And I was a huge fan of whole food supplements. Garden of Life, Mega Food, New Chapter had already done a really good job of putting food in concentrated form in capsules without excipients. So it took many years for me to realize that, there was a real gap in what was being made available. And those three companies ended up getting bought out by really large conglomerates that, we don't know if the quality went downhill, but I didn't really feel like, the people's best interest was at the center of those companies. So, over years, I had been thinking about formulas and we had so many people reach out to us asking, what do you take, Sayer? What do you take, Dr. Joelle? And so over the years, we had formulas in our minds and it took about 10 years actually to decide to finally create a supplement line because we felt there was a need for it.
Yeah, and Joelle, I know that you've treated thousands of patients and helped thousands of patients restore their health. What health problems were showing up over and over again that you felt weren't being adequately addressed?
Well, I mean, there's a few for sure in this day and age. Fatigue. Everyone's looking for the energy they had when they were, 18, 20, 25 years old. And you can actually really help the mitochondria, which generates energy, function better. And so that's like one of the top. The other one that's so common, obviously, it's the number one cause of death in America, is cardiovascular disease. And there's like 1,000 different things out there, and you have to take maybe 6 to 8 products in order to actually make sure that you're ticking all the boxes and making sure that you're supporting your cardiovascular system properly. So those are two of the main ones. Of course, there's joint issues and stuff like that. But just to touch on what Sarah was saying, in terms of like how to pick a good supplement, he talked about whole food base supplements. That's extremely important. Most people who are buying them from the big superstores, the Costco's, the pharmacies, if you're buying your supplements from there, you generally speaking, you're getting a pharmaceutical synthesized, chemicalized version of the food, right? So for example, when you eat calcium, when you take a calcium supplement, which so many, there's, millions and millions of people are on this, that calcium mostly comes from shaved rock. And then they put it in a pill, and then we ingest that thinking we're doing good things for our body because it is calcium, but it comes from shaved rock. It doesn't come from green leafy vegetables, right? And when you get calcium from shaved rock, it will likely deposit in your joints as degenerative joint disease or arthritis. It'll deposit in your cardiovascular system as clotting and sclerosis, right? And so, but if you get it from food, because there's what I like to call nutrient intelligence, that calcium will be utilized in the proper channels and where your body actually needs them. And so there's a massive difference between the calcium bottle that's synthesized and fake, that comes from rock, and the calcium bottle that is from whole food supplements. And so that's just in general, I really like to impart that to anybody who's watching. And that might mean that you're spending a few dollars more on the real whole food supplement, but it is 1,000% worth spending the few dollars more because the other one might be actually harming you, not helping you.
So it's fair to say, you're saying whole food ingredients, but some people don't even know how to approach a supplement label to pick out, is there whole food ingredients within this bottle? So if I handed you 10 bottles off the health food store shelf of supplements, what are the first three things that you would scan for on that label?
Well, the first thing I'd look at is excipients. And if you need like a degree in chemistry to try to figure out, and you can't pronounce the ingredients, that's the first step, number one. So, ultimately the product should contain some form of a food matrix. And for our product, when it comes to CardioNK, we have a regeneratively and organically certified farm where the actual product is made, the product is encapsulated and uses a regeneratively produced natto extract, because for CardioNK, we were really looking at, as Joelle said, the number one thing that we are confronted with, as a developed country is cardiovascular disease and death as a number one ailment that we face. And so we wanted to create something that would support cardiovascular health using food ingredients. And natto is just incredible because it has an enzyme called nattokinase, which has been clinically studied for quite some time to address issues related to, for example, clotting. And when it comes to the calcium component that Joelle spoke of, it's really a profound problem that most people are taking calcium carbonate or bone meal or oyster shell calcium. And it's, if you ever, cook an egg and you get a little piece of shell in that egg, isn't it like just a gross experience? You're like, ugh, what's that? That's the type of calcium people are taking several grams of, to ostensibly to make their bones denser, which we're told is the whole key of, osteoporosis and fracture prevention. But unfortunately, we're not told that the form that we were designed for millions of years, or go back to the Garden of Eden, right, is from food. In fact, that's how the cows get it. They're eating grass all day long and they excrete massive amounts of calcium. We could eat kale, has more calcium than, milk per gram. So that was the ethos we went into with our product line. It's about ancient intelligence, right? The AI that everyone, can thank their bodies for being here in a healthy state from. So that's basically the idea. And of course, the other components of looking at a really clean product is there evidence behind it? So we went into the research, and we've been doing this for 30 years now. And we found research that was so compelling. It's so compelling that we can't even state it openly on this podcast because of the FDA and certain guidelines related to speaking about literature that shows profound benefits. But we encourage people to do that. Go look up nattokinase, see what the research shows, and it's pretty profound, especially when it comes to research on plaque buildup in the artery. That was what got me so inspired and made me think twice about why we haven't created a supplement line. So that's where CardioNK was our, first product that we launched.
Wow. So you just blew my mind. Cows eat grass all day and excrete massive amounts of calcium. What? I mean, why did I never put together that they're eating the greens and giving us calcium back?
Yeah, it gets better. In fact, if you weigh the amount of calcium they excrete, it's actually far more than they're consuming from the grass because humans and really all animals and even bacteria have the ability to transform magnesium into calcium, which is considered forbidden science. You're not supposed to know that, but unfortunately for, the powers that be, the body is capable of producing a large array of essential minerals and vitamins if given the right ingredients. And so that's why we focused on a food matrix to deliver, these benefits. And the thing about Cardio NK that I love so much, and for those who've already taken it and given us feedback, is it contains a huge amount of this thing called Bacillus subtilis, which is a incredible bacterium that helps you break down the most toxic chemicals that the Industrial Revolution has produced, including glyphosate. This is all based on clinical and biomedical research, glyphosate, plastics, and pesticides. And so
What's the cardio NK?
that's actually the Cardio NK. I use it mainly for my gut, actually, in terms of noticeable effects. So for regularity and for helping with indigestion and optimizing metabolism, it's actually one of the best features of the product. It's really a prebiotic, probiotic, and a postbiotic.
So I have a son who, for some reason, is a tick magnet, and he has been bitten by ticks 5 times in the last 2 years. Two of them came back positive for Lyme and the secondary markers of, all these horrible bacterias and diseases. And so every tick bite he gets now is like a threat to his immune system all over again, even if it's not a tick that carries a pathogen when I send it to the lab. And I think that bacillosis word that you mentioned is one of the things that my apothecary said, Leah, if you just get him this strain of this keystone bacteria, his immune system will restore. So have you heard that about, is that the word you used? Bacillosis?
Bacillus subtilis. It's
Bacillus subtilis.
found,
Okay.
yeah, it's found in a number of fermented foods because it's actually derived from the soil. And it was part of that famous formula that Jordan Rubin sort of blew the world's mind with when he wrote Patient Heal Thyself, where, he was withered away to 130 pounds. He discovered homeostatic soil organisms. And in his product, Primal Defense, which was one of the most popular probiotics of all time, I think it only had 600 colony forming units per like 10 pills. And in this formula, which was inspired by his, actually, he's aware of it. We have 2 billion, colony forming units per serving. And in terms of immunity, it's well known that they produce an array of immune modulating compounds, including bacteriocins, which are like natural antibiotics. you know, Essentially, it helps to restore the foundation of our immunity in a way that is in alignment with ancient food practices. So it's not like taking an antibiotic, it's what gives your body the thing that hopefully you won't need antibiotics for.
That's amazing. So the ancient intelligence that everyone, the AI that everyone is craving is this ancient intelligence. That's brilliant. In this tech world, this world of rapid information, that AI, ancient intelligence, is what the world's craving.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why we work with and we source ingredients from certified regenerative organic farms. So literally we work with a farm called Heal the Planet Farm. And when you have a regenerative ecosystem like that, what's happening is you're restoring the way the farming occurs. You're restoring the microbiome of the earth. So the bacteria of the earth get fully restored. And then that's feeding the mycelium. And the mycelium is like the nervous system of the earth, right? So you're restoring and healing the mycelium from damage from herbicides and pesticides. And that's helping restore the plants, right? And so you're getting the plants that grow deeper, that grow broader, that absorb nutrients more than a non-regenerative farm. And then the animals are eating those plants. So the animals are getting stronger. And then the farmers are farming on healthier soils, they're getting healthier plants, and they're getting healthier animals that they're consuming, so the farmer's getting healthy, and so we're using those ingredients in our products, right? And the reason we're doing this is because it's healing at every level. We're regenerating every kingdom of the ecosystem, including ourselves. So that's the ancient intelligence. And the reason that we use that is because there's an intelligence to this way of farming. There's an intelligence to, the way that God designed and created the soil and the bacterium, the microbiome and the mycelium and the plants and the animals. And we're utilizing that to our benefit and to the benefit of the earth. So it's a beautiful cycle that actually creates net benefit, not just net zero, but net benefit to the earth and to ourselves.
And so this is truly talking about the information that comes from the earth being in these ingredients and benefiting your body. And so talk to us more about what some people don't recognize about the sourcing of the supplements off the grocery store shelf. Are there things that you all noticed in the sourcing that you intentionally went the other direction on?
Yeah, in fact, our product line, which is called Regenerate, one of the things we're doing is we're using a spirulina complex of minerals because many of the minerals on the mass market are basically industrial byproducts. So, like cupric sulfate is an example. If you go look at, like, say, Centrum, you'll see that they still use a form of copper that is also used, for killing algal growth in ponds because inorganic minerals are very difficult for living things to deal with. So the way that we were designed is that every mineral needs to be bound to peptides, which are also known as protein chaperones, and they protect the mineral so it's not oxidative and can cause things like DNA adducts and all the downstream adverse effects and help to deliver it exactly to where your body can take it in and utilize it. And that's really, the philosophy is that food is information as well as containing minerals and vitamins and proteins and lipids and fats. And so, God, nature intended for it to be delivered in an intelligent way. And the only way really to do that, again, is to go back to ancient practices from the farming all the way up to the preparation, because our natto is done in really small batches. We chose garbanzo beans and not soy because a lot of soy is genetically modified and people are concerned about the hormone like effects. But garbanzo has a very powerful set of compounds that overlap with the benefits known to exist with soy. So a lot of care and intention was put into the formulas for that reason. And again, if you look at mass market minerals, you'll find things like sodium selenite, which is such a powerful mineral that it's actually used in application as a certain type of chemotherapy. If you go and look on PubMed, you'll find research on it. And it has a lot of the downsides as well. But when you add it to the soil for Brazil nuts, it's one of the most potent ways to increase your oxidative optimization, and it has all these other benefits. So food is the ultimate way to deliver these minerals and nutrients.
Yeah, and another example, just a quick example, would be in the CardioNK, we have what's called ellagic acid, and that's from pomegranate. And everybody knows the benefits of pomegranate for helping with blood flow, right? But it's very difficult to absorb ellagic acid. And so the supplements that are out there, you're absorbing literally 1%. It's not getting it through the gut. And so we've attached it to a food peptide, and that's able to actually get it into the cell to the point where it now makes urolithins inside the cell. And those are just big, long words where, like, there's literally urolithin supplements where people are spending 150, $200 a month on, because it helps break down mitochondria. It helps with mitophagy, right? To ensure that you have healthy, young, good working, functional mitochondria instead of the sluggish ones that are older and not working great, right? And urolithin does that, urolithin A specifically. Well, our ellagic acid, because it's attached to a food, gets into the cell, and it doesn't just make urolithin A, it literally makes urolithin A through M, which is unbelievable. And that's the nutrient intelligence and the ancient intelligence that we're talking about. When you use whole foods, those foods understand where to go in your body, how to work, how to get into the cell, like Sarah was saying. And it makes a huge, huge difference compared to the synthetic stuff.
It's amazing. I tell my kids all the time, you are doing things all day, every day that break your cells. that cause your
Yeah.
cells to be broken and ugly shaped, and the iPad that you're exposed to, the bad foods, the bad oils, whatever's in your air and water. So what are you putting in your body that restores, that repairs? Do you have enough antioxidants? So it sounds like to me that this CardioNK is full of what we need to repair all the brokenness. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to teach your children because we can't really reduce all the exposures that are causing harm to our cells every minute, but we are a regenerative organism. Like every day you wake up with pretty much almost a new body, right? It just takes a few weeks to regenerate your liver and your skins are always regenerating. So like as long as you have the ingredients and support delivered by nature, then we can compensate and hopefully overcome those adverse exposures.
So who benefits the most from having a cardio NK supplement that has these amazing pomegranate properties and nattokinase? I feel like listening to y'all that everyone benefits, but who benefits the most?
Well, I give it to my children. I really was most excited about giving it to my family. My father has a lot of cardiovascular issues. He himself was captured by conventional medicine and in the really dark era we went through, I think a number of people, were captured and decided, hey, I'm going to go get the jab, for example. And the main thing that has not been acknowledged, of course, Stand for Health Freedom has done such a good job of educating people, is that there were a lot of microclot issues, et cetera. So, we're not making the claim that this product will help with that. It's just that what I wanted to do was to create a product that would help support cardiovascular health for those who, for example, they constantly come to us. I took the jab. What can I do? And I tell them every day removed from that incident, your body is healing and you're getting better because you have this, as you know, because you've written an incredible book on the topic with your husband, this incredible template that is of perfection that our body is constantly drawing from to retemplate and regenerate. But you do need certain ingredients in order to help support that process. And that was the real thinking behind the product is we need something that, many people are popping aspirin, for example, and it's well known now that many decade long recommendation is no longer being made by, these authorities because of all of the bleeding associated events. So what I wanted was something for myself that I could take that I felt was evidence-based that would support my heart and my cardiovascular system the way nature intended. So that was really the whole point of the product.
That's beautifully said because working with nature is never going to fail us. I mean, we all feel like we've been tricked and failed and hijacked over and over and over again. And so people come back saying, what's our focus now? What's our route now? What's our plan now? And restoring the function within us is a plan that cannot fail us. So a supplement like CardioNK is a sure way to know that you're taking the next best step to restore function, to be able to go out in public without fear. It breaks my heart even hearing people in the health freedom movement say, I don't want to go into certain environments where I think there's too many spike proteins circulating. They don't want to go into the state houses and advocate because they believe that the public, the general public, is sadly carrying too many spike proteins. And it breaks my heart to hear people live in fear that way instead of taking the next best step to restore themselves.
Well,
If
I
I
agree
could,
on that
yeah,
point. That's such a good point. On that point, if there's something that we've learned over the last 6 years, is to take radical responsibility for your own health, right? And not wait for things to break down, for diagnoses to come, and for really difficult and traumatic times before you take control of your health for yourself and your family. So, for example, I mean, if you look in my family, both men on both sides of my family, all of them have some type of heart issue. I'm not waiting to get diagnosed with a heart. I have great blood pressure. I have great everything cardiovascular wise, but I'm taking this because I'm preventing these problems from happening for me, right? I'm preventing them. I'm having my kids take them because I want them to prevent those problems so that they could express full health, not just wait for diseases and manage symptoms and manage diseases. That's not the way I want to live my life. That's not the way I recommend. And if we've learned anything going through the last 6 years, it's to like be proactive. So this is a way that you can be proactive about your health, that you can prevent problems and feel and function great, knowing that you're putting real food ingredients in your body. Like as an example, one of the ingredients in there is vitamin K2, but like a whole food, not a synthesized version of K2. And that K2, what it does is it helps shuttle calcium into the cell instead of into arteries, plaques, into joints for degeneration and bone spurs and things of that nature. So, it's really intelligent products. It's literally like 6 different products in one. And we did it that way so that you don't have to take, bucket loads of pills every single day.
There's been a lot of excitement around methylene blue recently, but there's also a lot of confusion. So, what's going on in that arena?
Well, that's such a good question because that was the inspiration behind our product, Methylate Blue. Because for so many years, I've been reporting on the problem with methylene blue being a coal tar derivative dye that isn't even approved as a dietary supplement. But there's been quite a fad to, in a way, glorify this exception with Maha, for example. How many years have health advocates like Food Babe been trying to get coal tar, red dye out of products? Because, for example, in the EU, 500 million people are protected from it because they use the precautionary principle. And it's very clear in the kind of literature that we constantly index on Green Med Info. It's a huge problem psychiatrically. Like it actually causes not just the association with red dye and cancer, but ADHD, for example, because it has a serotonergic effect and it's really a pharmaceutical. The entire industry of pharmaceuticals was born with the, accidental discovery that dyes that are derived from petroleum essentially have pharmacological properties. And that's where methylene blue came from. It is used in emergency medicine to treat poisoning from other chemicals, but it is an allopathic approach. And unfortunately, as far as I can see, there are a lot of people taking it who think that it's some type of mitochondrial booster without really looking at the downsides, which is a pretty typical trap when it comes to allopathic interventions, right? They feature one potential benefit, and then the active placebo kicks in, which is if you do a trial and you treat people with chemicals and they think that they're in the treatment group, not the placebo, they get like a positive effect because they have already outsourced their healing to the belief system that you can benefit from toxic compounds that are xenobiotic, foreign to our physiology. So one of the things I really wanted to do with Joelle and our formulation team was create an alternative that actually delivers the promise of a chemical-free way to optimize your energy from the ground up, which means we have these quadrillions of powerhouses in our cells, which are not getting what they need in order to be optimally effective at producing a sense of well-being and a clear energy that is calm and sustainable. And that is what we created as an alternative so that people, even if they are taking methylene blue, ironically, it turns out they need methylation donors in order to detoxify from that chemical. So we have put out an array of compounds that support the body's ability to produce energy at a mitochondrial level, which include, the B complex in food form. Most people don't realize this, but in mainstream multivitamins, they're getting cyanocobalamin, which is a cyanide-bound form of B12. It's not that it's enough cyanide to cause harm, but your body does have to cleave the cyanide off, add a methyl group, and then maybe after all the energy is expended, it might do something for you. Why do that when you can use a higher grade form, which is methylcobalamin, which can then donate the carbon to do things like increase energy, detoxify, as well as to make sure your epigenome is intact, because the whole field of epigenetics, which is the discovery that the things in your food and in your exposome, chemicals, etc., are the number one determinant of whether you are genetically fit. It's not the protein coding genes. We share the same amount with earthworms, about 23,000. It's the 98 plus percent of transcriptome RNAs that are actually at the heart of what makes us complex and capable of doing the amazing things we want to do all day long. So that was the thinking behind methylate blue is let's give people an alternative. Hopefully, some people are benefiting from methylene blue, as a lot of people claim, but people should at least have a natural alternative that is built with nature's intelligence. And that's what the product is for.
So
Yeah, and
it's
I mean, this is such a huge problem, Leah, because if you think about it, we are desperate for energy, and we're trying to get energy through different sources. Caffeine, right? We're drinking coffee like never before. Now we're trying to have nicotine. Now we have those drinks, those boost drinks or whatever they're called, the caffeine,
Monster?
yeah, monster drinks and like that are just absolutely terrible for you, and sugar. And so we're literally addicted to those things and the reason we're addicted to those things is because we're looking for energy. But when we take them through caffeine, through nicotine, through sugar, those aren't the real sources of how our cells create energy. The real sources is through the mitochondria. And so we're trying to fake create energy through an adrenaline hit. And so we get these spikes when we take those products, and then we get massive crashes, right? And that's the way the average person goes through their day now. And so we've created methylene blue to feed the powerhouse of the cell, the energy creator in the cell. And so the reason why the blue dye works and the reason why the pill is actually blue, it's not blue dye, it's blue from phycocyanin, right? Which is spirulina, and we add chlorophyll to it, is because our bodies actually, and Sayer shared this in his book, our bodies absorb light like sunlight, right? And that helps us create energy at the level of the mitochondria. So our mitochondria responds to light if we have these food supplements in there. And so it helps with the transfer of electrons, and ultimately it helps make clean burning fuel that's easy for your body to make if we put these compounds in there, right? And so this is all about the true source of energy, exactly the way your body is designed to make it through your mitochondria. And this methylate blue, not methylene blue, it's a play on words, it's methylate blue. The methylate blue helps absolutely feed your mitochondria, it helps it absorb sunlight better so that your body could actually make clean and healthy energy.
so you get you said psychophyana or something of that nature.
Phycocyanin, yeah.
So if I pick up your bottle of methylate blue and I read that in the ingredient list, I'm going to think it's a chemical because I don't know the word. So is in parentheses, will it say spirulina?
Yeah, we use an organic spirulina extract, and then the phycocyanin is a really high grade subfactor within that concentrate that we increase the levels of so that it overlaps exactly with the wavelengths that are absorbed when you take methylene blue, which is really the band between, let's say, 600 nanometers and 668. So there's a peak that happens where they overlap exactly. And that's why nature is the best, teacher, because what happens is that the mitochondria have things called chromophores, which actually absorb light. And if you have certain compounds, which include chlorophyll A, which is an incredible, component of food, it looks just like hemoglobin, actually. It's got the same exact folding structure, and it's basically just contains magnesium instead of iron. That's why it's green to the eye. Well, it turns out chlorophyll A peaks at 430 nanometers, which is in the red spectrum. Everyone's taking red light and near infrared, and that this is one of the ways to optimize your existing array of light therapies, because we wanted to create also a photodynamic enhancer so that the mitochondria can actually take energy from the environment, ultimately through the sun. And that's something people don't realize. But in 2012, an incredible study came out that looked at the way in which mammals can take chlorophyll and it goes into the mitochondria, a little compound that is broken down in the gut and helps to increase the production of ATP. But interestingly, those animals that received it with chlorophyll, like light and chlorophyll, they actually lived longer and they had lower oxidative stress because light is, pro-oxidant. So essentially we built something that enables you to capture light, and we encourage people that are on our protocol to take their day and go outside and actually get energy from the sun. And it's almost like having internal sunscreen. That's why chlorophyll A is such a key component of the product.
It's amazing. I'm always trying to get my kids to eat the things that give them internal sunscreen, so I love that. I'm like, "Here's a whole box of blueberries. We're going to the beach today. Here's the whole," So that's fantastic. It makes it more predictable. And, what really gets me is that this quote unquote pharmaceutical grade methylene blue is actually a chemical, which why are we surprised? They tag pharmaceutical grade onto it and people think, "Oh, it's totally approachable. It's fine." But pharma works in chemicals, and then you have one or two natural health influencers that say this is your answer, and people throw the standards out the window. Like we have to have our own standards for what makes a product good for me. And friends, I want to tell you that just because one person says this is the answer for me or this is the answer for energy doesn't mean that you can bypass like applying those standards for yourself.
Well, and
Yeah,
to add
exactly.
to that, I think that's such a great point. I think it's just a lack of knowledge and understanding. And like, these we're talking about a supplement line right now, but ultimately this is, you know, a result of 20, 30 years of research. Like Green Med Info is the science behind the science of natural healing. And so we've collated, SARE specifically has collated over 100,000 peer-reviewed articles from the National Library of Medicine over the last 20 years, right? And so there's a level and a depth of understanding that goes far beyond like, oh, it's blue, so it absorbs light, so it must be good for you. So there's a level of understanding that is much deeper than that, and I hope that's what's coming through in the supplement line, in the methylate blue and the CardioNK, because there is a huge amount of research that's done behind the scenes and over decades in order to provide the best possible for the people.
Best possible, bioavailable, clean, effective. These things are good standards to have. And you mentioned the word protocol. Like if you're on the Regenerate protocol, does that mean that you're taking both of these every day or talk to me more about what that means?
So we believe that the best way to approach health is, of course, lifestyle, mindset, exercise, getting regular detoxification through regularity. So that's the foundation, because that's also why, we were hesitant to produce a product line for so many years, because I've always been an advocate, as Joelle has, of, using food as medicine and really committing to self-care with the most basic ways to improve your health. However, the reality is that even my own supplement cabinet, which Joelle has seen and tried to organize, it's a nightmare. I must have about 100 supplements in there.
Yes, in
I'm
there. Yes, it's a war zone in there.
Thankfully, it's more organized now because I start my day with two of the Cardio NK. And like I said, it's extremely good for regularity, like just over the course of a full day. But within a few hours of taking it, proper hydration, I'm absolutely good. And for my own health story, that was the biggest issue because as an infant, I was given antibiotics and it totally disrupted my ability to eliminate for like 20 years. So I had to become a health advocate just to make sure I could stay healthy. So for me, this is like the biggest, most important step of my day. But as far as circulation and overall energy and clarity, it is a really good product overall. Like even for like, I think the ellagic acid effect is really noticeable for my mitochondria. But the methylate blue was created for those who are addicted to stimulants, which who isn't? Like I compare the modern coffee house to an opium den, which I'm not throwing coffee houses under the bus. They're one of the best secular places to connect and enjoy some time to yourself and work. But the reality is that people don't realize that coffee is actually an opioid and even decaffeinated, it has caffestrol, which is that oily stuff that forms on top of the cup. And it's really more potent than morphine. So when people are going through coffee withdrawals, it's actually more like a narcotic withdrawal. It's not to say you shouldn't drink coffee, but if you're someone who wakes up first thing, you do is you go to your coffee maker in the morning, and before you know it, by 2, you're on your 3rd cup, and you're not sleeping, and you're exhausted, then methylate blue is really designed for you. It's not to say you have to just switch entirely, but you'll find you don't really want to continue to abuse yourself that way. And the same for nicotine, gives an instant blast of calm and focus. And, there's probably real benefits to nicotine, especially in its traditional form, respected as like sacred tobacco. But who does that? So this product was developed, so that you could get energy on a sustained level that you feel in your cells, especially if you're an athlete. You just notice it. Your body is more capable, you feel better, and that was really the thinking behind it is let's address the energy crisis. Who is not tired to some degree? This is what this product is for, to give you the energy you need so you can get done the things you want to do and feel better. That's the whole point.
Yeah, and you won't get to be clear, you won't get a big spike in energy, or at least I don't feel a big spike in energy, but what I notice is sustained energy throughout the day. I'm not crashing. I feel like I can get everything done where, maybe later afternoon I'd get a little bit tired or whatever the case is. That doesn't happen when you're taking methylate blue because you're again, your mitochondria are firing on all cylinders.
So I
I
think
will
you just
say,
answered one of the most searched questions right now, and that's why do people feel exhausted after sleeping? And it's this we're depending upon sugar, caffeine, nicotine to fuel our mitochondria, and that's just not the natural source.
yeah, it's like whipping your adrenals. Like stimulants etymologically mean to prick. Like you're literally little micro instances of self harm throughout the day, goading yourself on to get to the next task. And ultimately, there's two other things about methylate blue that we're really proud of. One is we're using fermented nicotinamide, which is a form of niacin that's a precursor to Na+, which is the first of 4 complexes in the Krebs cycle that produce energy. And when I first took the product, I have to say, I only took 2 capsules. I was careful, I wanted to see how much of an effect I would have. I did notice this immediate, like almost like a buzz. So I don't know if I'm unique, but it would make sense because those who've taken niacin know you get the flush and you kind of get this sense of awakening. So I did get that feeling from it. Keep in mind too that there are other components like the vitamin spirulina bound peptide minerals, which are optimized for feeding all the enzyme systems in your body. So enzymes, as many of you remember from grade school, if you have just a tiny bit of the right mineral as a catalyst, it can exponentiate their function and an ability to fold properly and do the good job that they're doing, like it's just ceaseless energy is being produced. But because soils have been depleted in 1930, Congress said, like, we don't have the adequate minerals to feed the plants. And that's when everything was organic. Can you imagine how depleted things are now? So we're addressing that with the trace mineral complex in food form. And the other major issue that you've probably heard of is the MFTHR single nucleotide polymorphisms, AKA mutations. A lot of functional medical practitioners test people for these, and about 30% of the population has a significant problem converting folic acid into folate, the proper form. So we have included that in the product to address an essential problem because without adequate folate, there's quite a lot of things that go wrong in the body. And that's why a lot of people are supplementing with folic acid. But folic acid is not the proper form, and there's actually some research on it having downsides. Folate comes from foliage, so it's always about getting the proper form to your body. So those are 2 other components we put in. So when we say methylate blue, it's not just a play on methylene blue, it's also for methylation and for MFTHR issues, which quite a few people in the population face.
Why do some people who are healthy, they exercise, they eat well, still struggle with brain fog?
Well, I mean, there could be multiple issues, but at the core of it is because their mitochondria aren't firing as much. So they might have sluggish mitochondria. They might not be able to feed their mitochondria properly. And so that's why we do believe that this is going to help solve that. There's a lot of people who get benefits from or use like red or near infrared lights, right? Not just sunlight, but they have like panels that they use in their house. this would be super beneficial also for anybody who has that because it'll activate the light, which activates your mitochondria. So yeah, this is a product that helps with brain fog, with focus, with energy and longevity. I mean, that is at the crux of it. Listen, ultimately, we have literally quadrillions of mitochondria in our body, and they're these little energy. They're almost like lightning bolts. They create unlimited energy for us, but we just have to make sure that they have everything required in order to function properly, right? And like you said, not harm them as well, Leah, with the poisons and the toxins. And so we believe that what we've created here helps you do that so that you could have literally unlimited energy, because that's, if you do the math, we have an unlimited energy. It's abundant. And so if you're having energy issues like this, crisis, you might want to give this a try. You might want to get out in the sunlight. You might want to, use organic food, stop poisoning yourself, and make the lifestyle change that we've already discussed. And when you do that, the energy comes back, the brain, the focus, the ability to think through problems deeply, that comes back when your mitochondria have the requirements they need to create ATP.
What
Yeah,
I
and if
hear
I
you
could add
saying
to
is
that, like, so there was this incredible book that was super influential in my life by William Duffy called The Sugar Blues. I think it was written in the 70s. Anyway, like when we eat sugar, it's an immediate like dopamine kick. As significant as I think they did a study in rats where they compared like Oreo cookies to cocaine, and Oreo cookies were more addictive. So sugar has so many downside adverse effects on brain health and this whole brain fog situation because metabolically, many people don't have flexibility where they're able to adapt to fats, right, as a way to get the energy needed to power the body. Fat burns very cleanly. Sugar burns like it caramelizes in the blood and it creates all types of harmful, downside glycation products that, injure the endothelium. And ultimately, the brain can only live like 3 minutes without sugar when you're on that metabolic path. And it freaks out if you don't give it sugar. So it'll produce an adrenal rush, which gets your cortisol and sugar up temporarily while you're robbing all your reserve energy. And over time, the brain literally breaks down in its ability to have sustained energy because of something called insulin resistance. And now they're describing, dementia and Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. So the beauty of this product is that, when it comes to mitochondria, the most dense organs in the body are the brain, the heart, the ovaries technically are the highest. But the point, so for those with infertility issues, it's worth considering. So the point is that many people don't know what it's like to have optimally functioning mitochondria. And one of the cool things about methylate blue, it is an NRF2 activator, which is a way of basically inducing a endogenous antioxidant system that is so much more powerful than just popping ascorbic acid and vitamin E. This is the way the body was built. And there's a lot of research on that helping with brain regeneration and optimization. So, I know it's a lot of stuff, but when we created the product, we wanted to really address all the key biological areas that we could so that, you get a real effect from it.
what you're describing reminds me of my husband always tells me, "You're not a candle, you don't burn out." So I was watching the World Cup game last night, USA was playing, and they scored a goal within the first couple of minutes of the game, and they ran all the way back down. I said, "Babe, look, they are wasting their energy. They should not do that. They have a big game to play." And he said, "Leah, they're not a candle. They're not going to burn out." And I'm like, they have confidence that their mitochondria are constantly restoring. So maybe I can get that confidence too to get through my day. It's
And
amazing to watch.
such a good example because the one thing that I've learned in my life, there have been times where I've been so exhausted and times where I've had limitless energy because I'm a drummer. I'll drag myself to the drum circle sometimes, several 100 pounds of drums. And I'm like, how am I going to drum for the next 6 hours? 2, 3 hours in, and this is like 10 beats per second, hours long. I sometimes get to a point where I feel limitless energy coursing through my body and I can't even believe my hands, like my fingers aren't broken. And that's what happens when your vessel is optimized and you have the ability to capture the limitless energy of the universe. Like Tesla talked about that, how we're like a flywheel and we can capture the cosmic energy. It's just a matter of getting the vessel to the point where you can experience that, but it is available to us. And many people don't realize this. Again, if you're drinking coffee, it's like literally getting methadone on a smaller scale. And ultimately, you're drowsier and more exhausted than if you didn't drink coffee. Switch to like matcha, have 1 cup maybe. Try methylate blue. It's an alternative. I think it's much better.
It's amazing. I think maybe, I mean, I've never been a drummer, so I haven't experienced that, but I think maybe I've experienced that as a runner's high. I think what you're describing, like when the vessel is optimized, you give it a chance to feel that way. And you hit mile 6, 8, 10, and then you're like, oh, I can run all day. So that's amazing. I love hearing that,
Exactly.
and that there's hope. And I have to say, I've also suffered with migraines my whole life. I'm still working on that, you guys. Like I'm vulnerable too. And there was a point in my life when I was ultra marathoning where I knew if I got up with a migraine, if I could run 6+ miles, I would get rid of it. And like right now in my life, I'm not ultra marathoning. So that sounds miserable to get up in pain and do that. But I think that's allowing your vessel to be optimized. I love that, Sarah.
Well, I have to correct you on one thing. You are an ultra marathoner because you are a new mother and you have had an infant. So you've probably done 10 ultra marathons relative to most fathers.
It's amazing. I want to do some rapid fire because y'all have so much depth of experience and wealth of knowledge, and you have lived this for yourselves for decades. Your families have lived it, even your prior generations have lived it. So let's hear from both of you on a few of these things. What is the most underrated nutrient that you want people to know about?
Well, without it
So,
sounding like a shameless plug, I will say that when I looked at the phycocyanin research, it kind of blew my mind. And we've done an exhaustive review on GreenMed Info. So you can look at the 150 plus studies across, I think, 100 different health conditions. So basically, it's one of the few compounds that has been in the human diet since time began. So, and it overlaps with other endogenous compounds in our body. So we produce bilirubin, and there's a compound in spirulina that is identical, sort of like hemoglobin and chlorophyll, which speaks to how essentially before we had mitochondria, there was an external cyanobacterium that somehow merged with the first protocell. And that is what created the energy surplus, which enabled us to basically become human from that perspective. Of course, if you're more of the creationist bent, it's a different story, and that's valid. So I would say essentially phycocyanin is what blew my mind the most because we were looking for ways to capture light. I'd already focused on chlorophyll A and was blown away by it. But when I looked at the overlap with methylene blue, and again, in an acute chemical poisoning scenario, methylene blue as an acute intervention might help stabilize someone and save their life. So I'm not taking that away from allopathy. But if there's a natural way to do it, like for example, in World War II, they used coconut water as plasma to save people's lives. You can inject it right into the blood, which should be a good indicator as to why you should use it to hydrate. So this is one of the examples of where the research has just begun to turn the corner on this compound, but it's not found in supplements. So we decided to really bring this out as a frontier solution based on the belief that we shouldn't have to wait forever for billions of dollars to flow into clinical trials to validate something that already has the ancient intelligence sort of logo built into it.
yeah, and for me, I would say sunlight. And although you might not think of sunlight as like a supplement or a food, it is absolutely necessary for proper health. And we've been told for now, yeah, at least 2 generations, maybe 3 generations, that the sun is bad for you. And we're paying the price because people are staying out of the sun or they're putting petrochemical laden lotion on them to block the sun from their cells. And our cells, our brain, our hormones get activated through sunlight. It is absolutely necessary. In Sarah's book, he talked about how, in taxonomy, we were called, like humans were called heterotroph. We're basically basic heterotrophs, whereas plants are autotrophs, whereas they make their own food. We have to eat other food. But what Sayer proposed, based off of the research, is that we're actually called photoheterotrophs because we use sunlight as food and to create energy. And so I would say get out in the sun. Of course, if you're getting out there, take methylate blue before because it'll help you absorb the sunlight's energy and create clean energy in your mitochondria.
Is the biggest health myth? Just, 30-second version, say, or biggest health myth out there.
The biggest health myth, of course, is that you can't heal yourself from the sort of pantheon of diseases and diagnostic monstrosities that have been created, which are based on misidentifying poisoning, nutritional deficiencies, psychogenic factors. So that's the biggest problem is that people primarily have the rate limiting step around healing, which is that they don't believe that they deserve it. I do think it's fundamentally a spiritual crisis. Like so many of us were born into the world already traumatized. I mean, look at your average C-section, birth, in the ICU getting formula. That is the way we're brought in. And we don't have the lived sense of the beauty of incarnation and connection unless you were home birthed and had a sort of a natural way of coming into the world. And then you go through schooling and all the ideological programming, and by the time you're an adult you just think you're this descendant from a monkey that has no ability to heal and needs to take handfuls of pills in order to find some way to stay sane. But my work has always been focused on teaching that we have perfection built into everything we're experiencing, including our worst symptoms that are happening, for you, not to you. And if you can just shift your perspective and allow the message to come through and then adjust accordingly, you know, in alignment with natural law, which is built into your intuition, everyone knows every moment what the right thing is for them. If we can recapture that level of sovereignty, then there is nothing you need. You don't need these supplements either. These are just ways for you to, you know, really optimize what you could be doing without them. So that's my key myth buster, is that there isn't a disease on the planet that you can't exorcise yourself from and heal.
Yeah, and
Well,
likewise,
biggest
I
health
mean,
myth.
I feel like my purpose and the reason God put me on this earth is to bring the message and tell people and show people that to, that well, my purpose is to restore their faith in the body's ability to heal. Because I believe that because we've abdicated responsibility, we said, "Hey, doctor, hey, pediatrician, hey, gerontologist, just tell me what to do and take care of myself." We've lost the faith in the wisdom in the body's ability to heal. And my purpose on this earth is to restore that, which I feel like the whole story of regenerate and why we're regenerating the planet and creating supplements that help regenerate the body is part of that story, to show people that you can heal, that you can regenerate from anything exactly the way Sayer said it, which is absolutely beautiful.
So, last rapid question. What's one habit that's free but dramatically improves health? So, a free habit that dramatically improves health.
Well, my favorite thing is exercise, intentional movement, and push yourself to the edge where you think you're going to die. I know this sounds crazy, but for those who are into intense exercise, and Joel's an athlete, so he's lived his whole life this way. If you can get to that edge and survive, which you will, your body will go through a regenerative cycle and a hormone cascade, neurotransmitter cascade that will last a day. And many of the things we're talking about, the addictions you have, the self-limiting thoughts and beliefs, they just disappear because you were built to be an ecstatic being that is blissful. And until you establish that new baseline, and you have to push yourself out of the old cocoon, you have to kind of slough off the limitations. Even at an older age, you can feel this incredible sense of health and well-being, but it does take that level of effort, and I don't do it all the time myself. I'm sort of gearing up for my next round of high intensity interval training, but there's nothing better than that. You will feel incredible if you push yourself a little bit beyond your limit without injuring yourself. That's the key. You got to find that sweet spot, and you will be so happy about the version of you that emerges.
Yeah, of course, I was gonna say exercises, but what I'll add is, follow the circadian rhythm of the light, of the sun, and because that informs your hormones, when to release certain hormones, when to stop certain hormones. It informs antioxidants in your body like melatonin. It informs your wake sleep cycle. It'll just help regulate your whole body. So in the morning, get out in the sun. In the evening, get out at sunset, and in the midday, get some sun, and that will help your body regulate tremendously.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. And I want you to leave us with, how do we stay abreast of what Regenerate Supplements is doing? Where do we go to order that, to get in tune with this line? Because what you've built is truly beautiful. I mean, we could spend another hour just hearing you guys talk about from soup to nuts, how you can put together a truly valuable supplement line. And the Stand for Health Freedom advocates want to know, where do we go to access resources that we can trust and truly be free? So leave us with that, please.
Excellent. Well, you can go to regeneratecompany.com, and we have two products out there now that have been extremely successful, incredible feedback. We're really happy about where we're at right now. We have products coming as well. So they're coming out soon.
Oh,
And some
the
pretty
best
big.
whole food organic multis for men and women are about to be released here soon as well, and
And
others.
we
And
have a huge announcement as well in terms of its availability nationally, I'll say at this point, in a store near you. But essentially, what we feel we've done here with Regenerate is we have given the warriors, that are the Stand for Health Freedom community, something that will help to carry them on. Because, the reason why we're so happy to be here with you is because I can't think of an organization that has been more successful in being true to the grassroots and empowering, the community with tools without any ego or logo, as Joelle loves to say. That was always the intention. And Leah, you have done such an incredible job of supporting people and empowering them. So what we're doing is doing it on a physiological level. So in many ways, the product line is also honoring everyone who has stood so strong for parental rights, informed choice, privacy, religious freedom. I mean, this is the perfect complement to Stand for Health Freedom and, what you've done. So we really honor you and thank you for everything you've done.
amen to that.
Well, thank you all so much. We can't wait to get this word out to every Stand for Health Freedom advocate, because this is such a great service to those looking for amazing resources. And this audience is one of the first to know about it. So that's super exciting to bring you in on the ground level to make you aware of something that you are going to want to access. So thank you, Joelle and Sarah, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Leah.
Sounds great. Thank you.